Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Performance Cafe. So, jeepers, it's cold here in South Africa right now. Good to be back into the warm coffees instead of all those frozen chinos that we've been drinking. So, we've been talking a lot about accountability, and of late, I've had a couple of clients come to me. And I know we've all heard it before. I think the millennials carried the brunt of the concept of entitlement. And these people come to me and they say, but, I try to work with my team. I try to do what's best for them. But I find they just stay entitled. And I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to address this. So today I'd like to talk about exactly what entitlement looks like in the organization to start off with. So we make sure that we're looking at the same thing. And then I'd like to talk to you about a concept that I think is how we spin this on its head. So let's start off by taking a look at what does entitlement mean? So entitlement basically refers to a belief or a sense of being inherently deserving of certain privileges, benefits, or special treatment without necessarily having earned or worked for them. So, for example, people will want status, they will want a particular position, they would want personal, or they will say because of personal attributes, they are entitled. We have a lot of that in organizations where younger people will say, but I deserve the promotion. And they think of it as sort of a one-way street. I did the work, therefore I get the promotion. But do they really understand that there's more to deserving than just saying so? So I'd like to talk through three major characteristics of entitlement, how they play out in the organization, and more or less what we're looking for. I think the first is a sense of superiority. We might hear the saying, I'm better than this is beneath me. Why should I bother? So, entitled individuals have an inflated sense of self-importance, and they believe just because of who they are, they should get special treatment. The other problem with this, and what's particularly nasty, is that this also means that they look down on other people's contributions. I'm going to talk about that next. We also will hear things like, do you know who I am? Or why should I bother? Why should I do it differently? What we're seeing here is they feel so important that they should get the preferential treatment. They should be allowed to make decisions. They also sort of don't expect that they have to, complete anything to get this done. They don't have to change to get anything done. So what we see here is individuals who have very unrealistic expectations. They might want the reward, the recognition, the promotion, the benefit. And they feel that out of their very nature, they are deserving. Next up, lack of accountability. Right? Entitled individuals may evade when they've made a mistake. So they might evade responsibility. They might try to avoid, having people find out about it. So instead of telling someone, wait, I've made a mistake and, I need help, this needs to get fixed, or I'm going to fix it, they just try and dodge the bullet, so to speak. A really bad turnout of this is, of course, blaming and being manipulative. And we can see how being manipulative, is really bad, and they can practice that one-to-one. But what we find is that blaming actually is easier to use, and it's easier to shift off their responsibilities to other people, always have an excuse why something isn't done, always show how someone else forced them to not achieve this. And so what we find is that actually entitlement can be very destructive to an entire team environment, not just irritating for a manager who's having to deal with this. Another way we see this is resistance to feedback when we talk about accountability, right? They react defensively. They're dismissive about feedback or don't want to take constructive criticism, right? They believe that they are beyond reproach and that they don't need to improve any skills or behaviors. They also may question, for example, the relevance of something to them. It's like, why am I getting to do this? Don't you have someone else can do this? Isn't there someone, who is cheaper, by the hour? Is there not someone who's less educated than me? Isn't there someone, who's like an intern that can do it? So you can really see that that gap that they place between themselves and others and how superior they are, even when they're not taking accountability. And the third point, I think, is the one that almost sticks out for me the most, and that is a lack of empathy. Because in order to be entitled, my assumption has to be that I am better than others, that I am more than others. So what we're finding here is often people will disregard or dismiss the concerns, the opinions, the perspectives, or the needs of colleagues, subordinates, peers, and show no empathy or understanding. To make this clear, all we have to take a look at the entitlement to resources. So, I should have the biggest computer in the team. I should have the best desk in the team. I should have the most access to individuals in the team. I should have the most licenses to specialized software in the team. That is all entitlement. So when we take a look at that, we see that by its very nature, entitlement is going to impact teamwork, productivity, and the organizational culture if not properly addressed. Right, so how do we go about addressing this problem? Well, it's actually it's a fairly simple solution, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't take a while to get it done. But before we step onto how we solve this problem, just a little heads up from my side. All the examples I've given you are great examples of being entitled, sorry. And so what we find is we can't just default to a situation either where whenever someone wants something, they are entitled. I have a housekeeper. If she needs a broom to do her work, if I don't give her the broom, she's not going to get to do her work. So to some extent, our team members and peers do have needs and they do have things that we have to cater for. So how do I know when it's a real need or when it's entitlement? Well, firstly, I think the context is important. So, for example, if someone does need a computer and they ask for a computer, then the context tells us that yes, they actually do, just for practical reasons, need the computer. However, if we see that someone is consistently in every single context being demanding and wanting the most and the best of everything, then we understand that actually this might be that person's play on entitlement. I think the next thing that I find quite useful is frequency. So, is this person entitled the whole time? Or is it just when there's a particular topic at hand? So, maybe someone needs to do a degree in mechanical engineering, for want of an example, right? That's a pretty big ask. If they keep on bringing this up in spaces where projects are being discussed, where this would be a relevant degree and where that would be the next natural step for them to go, or an interesting pivot on the career, then, okay, again with a context. And if the frequency comes up and it's always well related to the context, well, that's maybe not entitlement. There we have to listen. But again, with frequency, if every single meeting is about what this person needs, if every single discussion is about how important this person is, then we're looking at entitlement. And there's also consistency. So With consistency, we might not have so much frequency, but we do find that there is a consistent situation where this comes up. Again, we take a look at, is this once-off behavior, or is this happening consistently? And is it maybe happening consistently in a place where it's inappropriate? In which case, we know it's entitlement and nothing else. So just a warning before we go about fixing the problem. If someone on a once-off acts really entitled, it might be worth your while to find out whether they're not just angry that they tripped on their cat on the way out of the house or messed mayonnaise on their shirt that day. Find out in these times if there is actually something more to their well-being, or there's maybe something that is that's wrong in their world, that if you solve that, actually you'll see the entitlement was just a symptom. It wasn't the cause. So how do we go about fixing this? And I'm very excited about this because, as you know, I've been doing a little bit of work around accountability. And I find that a lot of ways of fixing entitlement is around being better with holding people accountable. In short, I think entitlement requires promoting a culture of accountability and fairness, where individuals are recognized and rewarded based on their contributions and achievements rather than entitled privileges. This is called meritocracy. And that is, if it merits it, you may get it. If this project really is up your alley and you need a resource, it is yours. If the project is not up your alley, if the resources are scarce, then this is not what's going to be given to you. We will find something to give to you, but that is merited and warranted for what you need to do. I think the important thing here is that we also understand that we've been talking about setting people up for success a lot in our accountability talks. And it does mean that we do have to set them up for success. But at the end of the day, in a meritocracy, we want to take a look at their contributions and their achievements, and from that, make the decision on the way forward. So how do we establish a meritocracy? So because it's a system that provides success and power and influence on the basis of demonstrated abilities and people's merits, I like to think that outcomes-based management is the best way to do this. Let's talk a little bit about outcomes-based management. We've seen so much kickback around work from home, where managers are feeling disconnected and out of touch with what's going on in their teams. And so what we're seeing is more and more people are being pulled back into the office because our management system, what we were taught is about policies, about procedures, about structures and systems. So if you've worked 8 hours, you've done your job. Whether you've actually done work is beside the point. If you can complete your timesheet, you've done the work. Whether you've fibbed on the timesheet, we don't know. So what happens is, in those examples, we're talking task-based management. And task-based management says, if you tick the list, you've done your job. Outcomes-based management is very different. It worries less about the task. It worries less about the number of hours and your seat. It asks the question, what did you contribute and what did you achieve? So, for example, I'm always the excuse of, I'm always first year and last to leave. Fabulous. Okay, so you're good about being at the office and being excessively punctual and staying late. Great example. But what did that achieve and what contribution did you make? Because you see, people can still be at the office for 8 or more hours and actually achieve nothing. So the question becomes less about what tasks did you do, but what results did you deliver? So In organizations, we mostly understand we need certain strategies, goals. We have interdependencies in projects. How's that going? And what I really like about that is that it's not just about what one person achieves, because one person can achieve a lot when they maybe neglect collaboration, but it's also about what did you contribute. So it's about in your individual capacity, what did you give, but also as part of a team, what was that contribution? You see, because I am worth more can be counted with. Actually, you're only worth more if we can see the results. Why should I bother? Well, you should bother because it's a way to ensure you get the results. Why should I adjust or change? To get the results. And so that is why I'm so fond of this concept of outcomes-based management and meritocracy. Because when people are entitled, they cannot show what they've done. If they can, they're not entitled. They're actually just standing on their contributions and achievements. And so I would love to take next week to provide you with some really strong pointers on how we can take a look at dealing with entitlement at a more granular level. And we're going to take a look at how do we come back from that and how do we align that with our accountability models. Right. And so our time is up. And if you've enjoyed this stream and are looking for more, please remember we record and upload these after the fact to videos on YouTube and Facebook. And related articles can be found on my website, performforward.com. And the live stream themselves can be held on my LinkedIn every Wednesday, 9 a.m. South Africa time. That's GMT -2. Of course, if you have any questions or suggestions for topics, please do leave a comment on your platform of choice and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'll see you next week for another coffee at the Performance Cafe.